We just spent a lot of time looking at the reactor blocks framework, and that's truly modular in that it's fully customizable. You start from scratch and you're responsible for really putting that whole thing together. And I think that's great if you have a lot of time and you have a very large screen. The issue for me is more the screen problem. It's very difficult for me to start putting together 9, 10 modules and being able to see everything and patch it all up. So that's where something like Bazille as a modular alternative is very useful. And this harkens back in a lot of ways to like the old Moog modular or like the older Buchla modular systems, where you still have all of these different component parts. And I keep using that word modules, but it's the appropriate word. But they're pretty much soldered in and they're hard screwed. So it's not like I could take this filter, unscrew it, and put in like a Buchla filter instead. We saw inside of the reactor blocks that was very easy. We could replace the standard bento box filter with the Monarch filter or with the West Coast filter. And it would just be a matter of disconnecting a couple of cables. Here we can't do that. And that's not necessarily a bad thing because this instrument lends itself to experimentation and useful sounds immediately. We don't have to worry about setting up like a note input or anything like that. If I take the output, which is one of these red guys here, the output from oscillator 2, and I bring it into the main output here of just like the instrument itself, kind of like we had that level control, we can then see that by default, this is going to envelope 1. This is sort of like a VCA, and now we already have sound. And then within the oscillator, I have a lot of different choices. I can, start to change this from a sine wave into a saw wave. And then I could modulate that if I wanted. So if I want to go between like a sine and a saw wave, I could take this, bring it in. Let's slow it down. Then if I want to change the envelope, I just come in here. Right, so very quick and easy for me to start getting some sounds, but the power of this instrument is when you start to think outside of the box, because you can take any of these red outputs, right, and you can plug them into any input you want. So if I want oscillator 1 controlling, for example, the pitch of oscillator 2, or I should say modulating that pitch, even though this is at an audio rate here, I can very easily do that. And then by going in here and like changing this from instead of semitones to hertz, right, I can very easily do that and now take it to the extreme. And the best part is then I could go and I could take oscillator 3 and I could have that go into controlling the pitch of oscillator 1. Or maybe let's actually have it control this like fractalized amount. Let's try that instead. It's probably going too fast, so let's again clock it down actually. Try also taking that and putting it into this PM course. I guess if we want to get this a little bit more under control. Let's try doing something like this. So you can see how this instrument really just lends itself to experimentation. I have no idea what some of these things are going to do and how it's going to sound, but I know as long as I go from a red socket in output into a white socket in input, I can do a lot with this signal. So maybe before we go to the output, this may not make any difference, but let's put it into the inverter instead. Take the output of the inverter, put that into the quantizer, and then take the output of the quantizer and take that to our main output, see if that does anything. We can see it did flip the signal over. Ah, interesting. This is cool. And then maybe instead of doing it this way, why don't we go... And again, I'm not sure if this is going to make a big difference, but let's put this into the rectifier and then take the output of the rectifier into the envelope. And if we want to bring in a different one of these oscillators, let's say we want to have oscillator, even though this one's in hertz, let's do it anyway. Let's bring it into the output of 2. And we can see that it's going so slow, right? We're just not even hearing anything. So let's bring this up into an audio range. Put this into multiply. We can then bring it up. So it's multiplying whatever the hertz is that I have here. So this is 24. So this should be 48, etc. Let's do something like this. Now bring in... Maybe what would be interesting would be to have this maybe jumping around a little bit. This might be interesting. Let's go. Yeah, we'll leave it on 50 semi. And this is just me having fun, guys. This is what modular is all about. I don't even need to do a whole lot of explaining to you other than saying that red is output and the gray is input. Go in here and we can jump this pitch all over the place. So let's just mess these. Let's just move these at complete random for now. This is cool. And I'm trying to see if I can remember how to do this. Okay, I think this is how this is going to work. I'm going to go in here and again flip some of these guys here kind of at random. And then oop, I must have done that the wrong way. There we go. That's what I want because I can now get this to spin. And obviously we could go into the effects and you see that we again have sort of a modular control over the signal flow here if we want to go even further, as well as stacking voices on top of each other, adding in glide, etc. So this is just kind of an introduction to you of this instrument. And what you see is that modular synthesizers, more than any others, lend themselves to just shutting up and trying things. And I think that's what I love about it. And that's why I think it goes so far when you're trying to learn about synthesis is, what happens if I do go from here into here? How does that impact the sound? Does it impact the sound? Can I visually see something changing? And that's how I think you're really going to learn and grow and get better at this much quicker than if you were to start with just your basic subtractive synthesizer. All right, so this is Bazille. We're going to spend a few more videos just talking about some of the concepts here with modular and also what this instrument is capable of.